Hey guys, welcome to Freaking Epic Podcast. And this is a segment we call What You Thinkin', John, where every week we come in and ask, What you thinking, John?
Okay, I am thinking about um if you were a god, like
Uh-huh.
D&D style god.
Okay.
Um
So like a small G god.
well, like
Like
yeah,
D&D
well,
style, Greek,
like
whatever.
with the ability to influence the earth, I guess.
Sure.
Um if you were a god, like just a fresh brand spanking new god, what would your
Yeah.
first divine act upon humanity be? Like either to the benefit or to the detriment of humanity.
Okay, so my first act as a god would probably not be about humanity at all. My first act would be something solidifying my position. Because if I became a god, I would have to assume that
No,
there's
no, no. Like saying that your position is secured.
okay.
What is the first thing you do?
Okay, so there's no like Pantheon rival issues. There's no one who's going to try to come after my spot. There's no one who's a new god hunter, nothing like that.
Nothing
Just
like that.
assume there's a new god hunter. Okay, no, wow.
Just
Honestly, I have no idea. I don't even know
first thing
what I would.
that you could do to benefit or detriment humanity. Um, I guess since you don't know what you would do, let me tell you what I would do. I think, and that'll
Okay,
give you kind of like a basis. So my first thought, see, I was thinking about doing this for the first week, but because this is kind of one of the things that I daydream about a lot. Um,
being god.
well, yeah, of course, being God.
Okay, well, good to know.
So saying
Yeah.
that I were a god, the first thing that I would do is I would increase the size of the world.
Okay.
Um, so I would increase the size of the world so that way, um, overpopulation things wouldn't be an issue, and that way there'd be tons of new stuff to explore, and um, you know like it could save the environments and things like that. But it comes at the catch of it being the literal Toriko world.
The literal what?
Um, have you ever read Toriko?
I don't think so. I don't recognize the name.
Okay, so Toriko is this manga about basically it's about food, and so the world
Oh,
has gone into the
is it
age of
about what?
gourmet.
Food hunters?
Yeah, like food hunters. So basically, there are tons of just edible things all over the world, but most of it is super difficult for like regular humans to get. Um, so
So basically, everyone would be able to.
so
Every
how they put it is a capture level 1 creature took a team of I think it was like 20 hunters, like pro hunters with shotguns to like take down.
okay, so
Um,
there would be like dangerous beasts roaming around all over, but also everyone would be a cook.
well, no. It's the thing of so the people of power, like the pro athletes in this world, aren't
Mhm.
athletes; they're cooks. So there's because it's this world filled with tons and tons of different foods and all kinds of flavors and things for people to go out and experience.
Okay,
Um, and so that's why cooks are like such a huge deal in this world because they um, they need to be so that way they can create crazy new and tasty foods.
huh? Okay, so how
Um,
much are we talking?
and so basically throughout the manga you figure out that the world was Earth, but just like it was actually planet Earth, but several million years ago or however long ago they did it, the planet was struck by a meteorite, which then started to increase the size of everything.
That's exactly how meteorites work.
Yes, it was a
Nothing else
meteorite that
but-
made the Earth grow. But so that's like the whole thing is that
Is that
uh, is that the world is just this crazy dangerous place unless you're able to have a
bodyguard
one,
cook.
well, no. The cooks aren't the bodyguards. The people who go out and get these foods, they're like they're food providers. I forget what they actually call them, but they're like the crazy powerful people, like in the actual fight manga aspect of it. That's who they are.
It sounds like that would not relieve world hunger at all, because it sounds like getting food is incredibly dangerous. Or can you get regular food and just it's kind of like a luxury to get?
That's the whole thing, is that there's just everything in this new world is edible. It's just whether or not you can actually acquire it. And so that would be my gift to the world.
Lots and lots of interesting and unique food. And
yeah, but you have to be able to. Basically, it would coal the weak and the
stacked as a god is coal the weak.
Yeah. But it would solve like so many issues for people who are like struggling to
like too many weak people, too many humans on the earth. Just coal them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh no. Okay. So it's basically I like the concept of the fact that humans are no longer top dogs.
Okay.
In the
kind of bring back the Wild West mentality, bring back take us away from our safety and our complacence and put us into survival mode.
Yeah. Because I feel like the majority of the issues with the world nowadays comes from like greed and gluttony, and like that's where like all of the different like all of the pollution and things like that comes from like human greed, right?
No, I don't really agree with that, but
no, it absolutely does. It absolutely does.
If pollution doesn't come from like the richest countries, the majority of pollution comes from countries that are in the process of going from kind of third world to second world countries, like places like India, China, like and once they level up their way of life, they'll start worrying about the environment. So it's not greed, because richest people don't
I don't think they will, because it's like the reason why there is so much pollution is because of like the concept of money, and there's a demand for such and such, and because there's that demand.
Money, because the concept of money is inherent to the human species. There's no way that money causes pollution. Pollution is caused by people wanting to be more comfortable and wanting to have better lives. And like, if you look, the richest countries are all lowering their pollution year by year. Like America every year has gone down. Like we have the cleanest air we've had since I think the 70s, 60s.
Zach, we are here to produce funny, interesting, dumbass like concepts. We're not here to talk about real things.
I'm here to talk about whatever comes up. But okay, I have never considered becoming a god. I don't think I would. The thing is, I don't know what I would do if I had to focus on other people. Like all of my concepts of what I would do with some sort of small g godhood are like concepts of how to do stuff for and with myself, which is not saying I wouldn't do things for people, but I would that's like a part of my day to day. I wouldn't make one big change, I don't think. I mean, like,
okay, what if it's not necessarily, okay, what if it's not for yourself, I guess?
Well, I mean, for humanity, I would guess, I mean, okay, so I don't know what I would do, but I could throw out a few possibilities. One would be that there is kind of like a subconscious language where we basically all can kind of read, more or less to some degree, we can all kind of read facial expressions and pick up on like scents and smells and pick up on body language, stuff like that. And we can all kind of essentially have like a subconscious language going on. And what I would do is make
you would do like a reverse Tower of Babel then, instead
that's
of
exactly what I would do. So instead of, I would basically give back a kind of a subconscious language that is like a specific language, because I kind of think of like Tower of Babel as removing that, and like all of these, micro expressions and things like that are all aspects of what used to be a a universal language, kind of an empathetic language where we can all feel the concepts that we are kind of presenting to each other. So I might give back kind of the universal empathetic language. I think that would be good. It would kind of depend on like whether whether I know what God's actual plan is, because I think that and I think that without understanding the forces at work, it's really hard to say what would actually work, because like most things we try to do as humans wind up backfiring. Like 90% of things have a Cobra effect. And the Cobra effect is basically in India when the British were kind of ruling there. The British were like, hey, let's help our subjects by getting rid of these dangerous cobras. So they put a bounty on cobras. And after like a month, people in India realized, hey, you know what's much easier than catching cobras? Breeding cobras. So cobra farms popped up all over the place. And the British were like, man, they're really they're really catching a lot of cobras. How are they catching these cobras? And they went around, they realized that they were just breeding cobras. And so they canceled the bounty. And so all the cobra farmers didn't want to deal with it anymore, didn't want to deal with feeding the cobras, so they just let them free. So the British trying to get rid of cobras doubled the amount of cobras. And so one of the things I live by is that almost always what your intentions are is not what's actually going to happen. And so as a god, I would have to really kind of dig into things and figure out what the goals are and what actually works, because there's so many things that we think will work that will actually wind up doing the exact opposite of what we think. So, if I could theoretically, I could make everyone happy. And, I think that would be probably awesome. But also, how would that work in a way that still allows us complete free will? By making everyone happy, I might be essentially denying humanity free will. So I'd kind of, honestly, I'd have to like read. I'd have to, I don't know, learn and understand. So the first thing I would do for humanity would be spend a long time figuring out what actually works and what actually makes people happy.
Okay. Well, I mean, but given that humanity in general, like, are just, you can't please everyone. Like, there's what?
I'd figure out a way.
I just, like, through the inherent having a free will, like, it's just not a thing unless you alter that, because the matter of having free will is what allows us to, like something or dislike something.
Sure.
And so
I think of an underrated thing people forget is in a world with free will, people have to be able to hurt other people. Otherwise, they don't have free will. If they can't, like, if their actions are canceled the moment they, someone else doesn't like them, then that's not really technically free will. Like, you don't have free will in any kind of meaningful sense. So that brings up becoming a god is like a weird thing, because there's so many issues of like reading Mistborn, the kind of the third book of Mistborn made me realize like a lot of the inherent difficulties of like being a god. Being a god is so much harder than people think it is.
Like, I don't know.
Okay, but so you're saying I should think of something more entertaining, and like, what would you just do on a whim?
Yeah, but I mean, as much as I said that I'm not interested in the philosophical,
Interested in the
kind
political. You're interested in philosophical.
sure. I guess I don't know. Like, I definitely would. See, because now I'm thinking about the like the fact of no one being happy. I think like political aside, I stand by my choice of just wanting to make the world a bigger place and make humans not necessarily be the top dog, or at least have to fight to retake their position as top dog.
Sure.
Because I think that overall, a good thing for humanity would be some super unifying force, like something that we as humans can unite for. And so I think that having a world where, oh shit, there's so many crazy cool things going on, like everything's edible, there's turtles that are able to produce power just by like solar powered turtles. Like that's actually a thing that they talk about, is they have solar powered turtles that like this eco community uses to power their houses and stuff. But like there'd be so much more for the world to explore, to find out, to discover. Like, hey, this is cool. This is a race of turtles that we can use to power our houses. Or hey, this specific kind of animal tastes super good.
I think that is all already happening to anyone willing to look. The issue, I think, is that the world is so big that every time you learn, because if you become like a microbiologist, you spend your entire life learning about 5 different type of fish and never get bored. If you are like, you can dive into playing the guitar, and there are people who've like, play the guitar a little, but it's a completely different world from someone who's played the guitar for 20 years and figured out all these little things. Like, though I think the issue is the world is so big that we can't comprehend it. And so the issue would be more, to me, is perspective, that most of us are pretending, that are just getting trapped into thinking that the world isn't this big crazy place where you can cook amazing things. Like, you could go across the world eating interesting new things, prepared with new ways, with new ingredients, and for the rest of your life, literally, and continually be surprised. That's already a thing. I think the thing is more that we need proper perspective to understand that we already live in that world, because the world is freaking huge. Everyone in the world could fit in the state of Texas and have a lower population density than Tokyo. Like, we have a huge world, and we have the ocean, which is 70% of the world, and that's basically almost completely unexplored to some degree. We have this huge solar system. We'll be on Mars in a few years. I mean, we're on Mars now robotically.
Well, yeah.
I really think that. So my problem is that I've thought about this stuff, and that I always come back to, that's what we already live in, and the problem is people's mentality and mindset. And I think, I mean, not to be weird about it, but I like come back to the thing to the Bible thing, which is the Bible consistently, maybe the third most common thing it talks about is being grateful. And I think that every time you're grateful, you start to see more of the actual world we live in. And people are constantly opening their eyes or closing their eyes to reality and how glorious and amazing it is. Like, how much possibility there is in every single thing. So I feel like my issue is, I think we already live in that world, and no matter what we did, then people would come back to, they would feel the exact same way that they feel about it now. So for me, if I could do anything, I don't know what I would do, because I don't know how it would be effective, but I would give people proper perspective to understand how interesting and how blessed they are. Like, the fact that we worry about, so many things when we're in the greatest point in humanity's history is just crazy to me. we live in a world where you can literally, computers are literally magic to everyone else in humanity's history. Like 90% of what we live in would blow away people who lived 70 years ago, 50 years ago. And we just don't consider it awesome. So I feel like we would, if we made the world bigger and everything was food and all this stuff, we would be exactly as bored as we are now, because but we already live in a world that's everything is theoretically food. So my issue with God is I know enough to know how little I understand. Like for me, so I personally try to I'll try to do things that are good for people, but I don't know. I think usually what's good for a person is better than doing something for humanity as a whole, because kind of opening people's eyes to proper perspective and understanding of the world is far more important than anything we do for everyone, because it's what lasts. And you can't force it, because it doesn't work with humanity. So I guess I could just change humanity so that everyone could have proper perspective, but then I feel like I'm taking away their choice, which might not be the worst thing, I guess, but
yeah, I don't know. Like, I definitely struggle with the concept of free will, quite a bit, on whether or not, like, I want, like, well, above all else, I really want free will, but at the same time, I think that it's free will that causes all of the problems in the world.
I completely. So
it's just like,
go ahead.
It's one of those things where I was thinking about, like, what heaven is gonna be like, sure. And then like what the whole new world is gonna be like. Because I had this thought the other day that what if the world is a literal cycle, because God's given us free will, right?
Sure.
But what's going to happen in heaven is is God going to take away our free will in heaven? And if so, like, do I really want that? And wait, hold on. I'm not that. Yeah. I'm sorry, but anyway, so that made me think. What if there was free will in heaven? Like, would then we be able to sin in a perfect world? Like, because heaven is perfect, right? But then, like, because we have free will, would we be able to sin, like choose to sin? And then, like, say this is after the rapture and all that jazz, and in the new world, then would that person who's sinning then be cast out of the new world? And then would it cause a whole cycle thing of that person who is sinning becoming the new Satan, and then God starting over again, but then that person interfering? And like, that's a whole crazy thought I had of, what if the world was just a cycle of going over and over and over again of that person choosing to sin and going against God creating yet a new world, because, sin's now been introduced into this situation. And so going over and over and over and over again.
I think that's a really fascinating idea, and I think it'd be cool to like read a book or a manga or something set in that world. I personally don't think that that's the case. So my personal understanding of the world is that at all times we are either learning to give control to God, surrender to God being God, or we are becoming our own God. Like, basically throughout our entire lives, you can kind of tell, because like all the craziest and evilest people all think that they're good, and they all think that they're doing things that they have to do. If only people would listen to me, like, and all the best people have kind of surrendered themselves to a greater ideal, or God, or something. They're basically, to me, the world is a process of you're either living into hell or living into heaven. You're either creating, because hell is if everyone is their own, is that if everyone is God. Like if every person is God and there's no greater force above it, that automatically becomes hell, because each person being selfish for an eternity creates just this world of essentially everyone is Satan and everyone surrendering to God. So my thought is heaven is the point where everyone has completely surrendered themselves to the will of God. And the Bible talks a lot about being remade in the nature of God. So everyone has surrendered themselves to the greater truth, which um, is kind of godliness and holiness, but that where it works so that in heaven everyone has free will, but everyone is choosing at all times to live in the good way. And so there's still ability so to me, because the Bible talks about like heaven being a new heaven and new earth, a new world essentially. So it's not just like, we go float on clouds. It's literally just a perfection of the current world. And so we would have the ability to sin at all times, but the beauty of it would be that everyone would be choosing not to sin. And so when limitations of time are taken away, what you're surrendered to will show up to some degree. So the way I think of time, the way I think of timelessness, like the Bible kind of talks, and sorry, listeners, if you didn't want to hear a theological podcast, because that's what you got. So in my way, I think about time as not in a world without time. Time is not linear. Time is all happening at once, because we won't have limitations on our brain and our understanding. So essentially, kind of the Bible talks about how we would be at the wedding, praising God all the time, or at the wedding feast of the Lamb all the time. Like, so in my mind, we go up to heaven and we have this huge, crazy party where everyone, because, a wedding feast is back in the day was not a tame affair. It was a rager. It was awesome. And so we'll be having this feast with every awesome person we know. But then once it's done, we'll go off and hang out with God, or, you and me will hang out. And if we hang out for a year together, then I go hang out with, your brother Daniel for a year. I'm still experiencing the year with you, because I have perfect recall, because entropy in my mind is a part of time and is a part of the curse. So if you were in heaven, every single good experience you have is layering on it. So every single day you are adding new goodness to your life, and it's kind of layer upon layer upon layer upon layer, like reverb, but you're just kind of positive reverb. And hell is the selfish negative reverb continuing on forever. So if you have a mind which can conceive of reality and is outside of time, and you have the ability to live eternally because you're outside of time, heaven and hell are inescapable realities, because you're either going to be building your own horrible, horrible world, just like a drug addict whose world, like I come on these drug addicts, they're like, no one will even give me food, and it's my birthday. And I'm like, okay, let me buy you some food. Let me talk. And they're like, no one even ever listens to me. And it's like, I don't matter. And I'm talking to them and trying to listen, but they turn down the food and they don't want to actually talk to me. And it's all kind of like, no matter what they say they want, they don't really want it. They just like want to be upset and want to be, they refuse to allow another human, another being of free will to matter. Are you still there, by the way?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just like absorbing all of the information you're throwing at me right now.
I'm just making sure it didn't hang up again. But
no,
so
I gotcha.
Anyway, those are some of my thoughts on the nature of heaven and timelessness and free will a little bit.
That's interesting. I don't know. It's an interesting concept. And I don't think that anyone, past God will ever have truly understand all the intricacies of free will and what heaven's gonna be like.
Yeah, of course. I think that's part of our response as humans is there's a verse in the Bible that says, to him who is able to do above and beyond what we could hope or dream. And so I hope or dream and know that it's going to be different and better than I think. So I don't worry too much about it because I know that God's got it. And that gratefulness thing, like being thankful for what we have now, like you can see that work in people because our brains are programmable essentially. So whatever you do builds deeper and deeper neural pathways. So you can essentially, my great grandma was in the nursing home. She had had a stroke and all that. And she, my mom was talking to her and she was like, "Are you in pain?" She's like, "No, I don't feel any pain." She was just happy because she'd programmed the neural pathways of gratefulness and joy so deeply in her brain. Even when she was old, she didn't feel pain in the same way that other people feel pain because she had lived into that reality. Because our brains are programmable things, you can live into whatever you're living into. So for me, I would, because I know that I'm not God and I know I don't know what works. But I just think that there's something to be said for living into joy and gratefulness and not always being outraged or upset. And, not all, so I always try to think of what the good parts of a situation are and, I don't know, give people the benefit of the doubt because I'm trying to program my brain to live in heaven, I guess. I might not have explained that properly, but
no, I get the general idea of what you're saying. Like, I guess that really does take the saying the world is what you make it, like, to a whole new level, because it's just,
I've seen people in the same situations, two people who've lived the same life, have the same house, similar house, similar wife, similar job, similar kids, similar, hobbies. And one can be absolutely miserable with it and think that this is a punishment from the heavens. And one can think that this is the greatest thing that could happen and think that it is, a gift from the heavens. And so to me, I don't know. I just try to be grateful and live in a way that I can understand. I'm programming myself to have joy.
Okay.
Also to understand that the world is way deeper and bigger and smarter than I think it is, and to try the brilliant design in each little piece, instead of thinking about the way each piece is broken, think about the way each piece would be perfected if it weren't for, me being cranky at that moment or for wanting something I don't have or whatever. And a lot of this is aspirational, not to say that I actually live like this every moment. I
gotcha.
I used to, for sure, but I'm still, living into that reality.
So, man, I went into this thinking it was just gonna be a dumb stuff that we like randomly talk about. Now I'm like sitting here like pondering the intricacies of life and what that all that stuff. But okay. Well, that's all I really had.
Okay.
Like,
so thanks for letting us know what you're thinking, John.
Yeah.
You have a shell shock sound. Like, what just happened?
Well, no, exactly that. I went into this thinking that we were just gonna talk about just stupid, dumb stuff again, and bam!
I am always 100% of the time down for talking about stupid, dumb stuff or important stuff, and kind of. I like the idea. I'm a verbal processor, so I a lot of times just ramble on, which helps me understand what I think about things.
Right. No, I gotcha. I'm very I don't know. For me, like, I just kind of go into mental hibernation, I guess. Like if I'm really thinking on something, I can't like
You can't
talk
think about it.
because well no I can only think about it. I can't like talk or do anything else because it's like when it comes to thinking about things, it's 100% or nothing at all. Like if I'm not focusing everything on it, like just the ADD in my brain will just kind of go, oh, and I'm thinking about this now. No, I was contemplating this, and I'm thinking about this now. No, like
So
the whole.
do you think a lot, or do you just kind of not think at all sometimes?
Bit of column A, bit of column B. I'm constantly daydreaming about random stuff. But if I'm not like daydreaming or like thinking about school or like things that are stressing me out, it's not, like completely blank up there. I just kind of do whatever's in front of me.
Because you're the same personality type as my brother Michael, and he says a lot of times he just doesn't think at all. He'll just not think for hours, and then but he seems to process things. Like he just seems to have kind of a disconnect with his subconscious, because he'll just suddenly say something and he didn't know it before, and it'll be just like he was thinking because he said some brilliant thing that he never knew before. But for me, like it's always connected. Like I always am thinking and I always know what I'm thinking. Like I have like a very tight connection with my subconscious.
No, I am definitely a lot more like Michael because I if I'm not using it, I'm not like if I don't need it, I'm not using it kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like up until the moment that I need it, and then I guess stuff like that happens to me too. Like now that you've put it in words, it's like, yeah, that sounds actually kind of similar to what I go through. It's just I don't know. Like I think of my brain and my subconscious as like doors that I open up into, and when I don't need it, or if I don't need anything, or if I'm just tuning out, all the doors are closed. Like, and I don't really ever like leave a door open, if that makes sense. Like,
yeah,
something that I do a lot of is that I guess something that I'm really good at is multitasking. So I can have like multiple doors open at once. For example, while I've been talking with you on this podcast, I've been playing a game on one monitor and reading in another monitor.
Wait, what?
Yeah, that's why I have two monitors.
You're okay. Wow.
And so I can. But so mentally, my mind is devoted to you right now because we're doing this podcast. But while, like, I guess the door analogy is kind of bad because I'm not really thinking about what I'm playing, but at the same time, I kind of am.
So my analogy for my own brain is computer, and as a computer, I have very high processing speed and very low RAM. I can only be doing or thinking about one thing at once. Like I can process really fast so it looks like I can do multiple things, but I just like, if you want to mess me up, just throw like 5 things at me and then suddenly I freeze up and can't do, and I'm useless and crash until I can get down to 1 or 2 things and blast them. You sound like you have like decent processor speed, but a heck of a lot of RAM. So you just have like 13 windows running in the background at all times.
Yeah, it's basically the way I another way of putting it is instead of like what I'm focusing on being deep like a well, I'm more like super vast but shallow like a swamp, I guess.
Or an ocean, or a small ocean, a lake. that
Well, no, like
people.
because it doesn't get very deep, like what I'm devoting up until certain parts, or if no, like
And your entire brain is filled with swamp people.
yes, just the swampiest of people. Oh, it's hard like describing how my brain functions because I don't think about it in the moment.
I think about my brain. I think about how my brain functions all the time. I'm constantly like thinking, "What are you doing right now, Zach?" That's basically my like through line of my life is thinking, "What are you doing?"
I guess like one thing that I do say that's in my like everyday vocabulary, especially when I'm at work, is like if I say something twice to someone, I'll just kind of apologize and say, "Sorry, I'm on autopilot right now," and that's really kind of how it works. Is like I can be thinking about multiple different things, but not real deeply into them.
Oh.
And so because of that, it's man, this is so difficult to describe.
No, here's the thing, John.
Mm-hmm.
Next week you'll know because your brain will process this in the background and then you'll understand it. You just haven't run this sub process in the background yet.
Right. It's not just
I,
had the
I don't
been for
I
long
don't doubt
enough.
at all that you will I'll talk about this with you in a couple months and you'll forget that this conversation ever happened, but you'll like have a whole theory because it's just and you won't even have thought about it.
Hmm. I gotcha. I gotcha.
My theory
Okay.
anyway.
I mean, maybe I will, maybe I won't. Who knows? Like, yeah, yeah. Who knows? Um.
All right, man.
All
Hey,
right. Well, good, good talk. Very, very
yeah,
deep and philosophical.
good talk,
Next
good
week,
talk. So
it's going to be super dumb.
yeah, I'm 100% down with that. Hey guys, thank you so much for listening. I just wanted to take a moment and ask you guys if you would like us, comment on us, comment for us, comment through us if you wish. Subscribe, leave us a good review on iTunes, follow us, retweet, double click the picture for a little heart thing. Make a listicle about the 7 times we reminded you of cute cats. Give us a thumbs up like an emperor of old deciding who lives and who dies. Give us a rating of 95 in Red Wine Lovers Weekly. Right swipe us on Tinder, Friendster us on Friendster, and add us to your top 8 friends on MySpace. Thank you. I just want to thank you so much for doing all those things for us and for listening. Definitely for listening.